Greetings, YouTube. A whole lot of white people don't like to talk about race. This is not going to come as a surprise to anyone that has ever had to deal with the topic of race, particularly if you are a person of color. You've encountered the fact that white people either ignore the topic completely or get very uncomfortable when it's discussed. And that discomfort is often referred to as white fragility. Now, white fragility, let me give you a little definition of that right here. The term was coined by Dr. Robin DiAngelo in 2011 article discussing her experiences with white people in anti-racism training. She defined it as a state when even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves. So even when the person is pushed very gently on the topic of racial injustice in America or the world at large, the person becomes uncomfortable. They are essentially a hothouse flower that, when exposed to anything outside that hothouse, they begin to become stressed. And the article, for some of the reasons, for example, they're not used to it. They don't have to deal with this. So they don't like it. It makes them uncomfortable. Another reason, a lot of white people don't see it. They simply can go through their lives and never encounter what racism is on a personal level. Because racism isn't just someone not liking you, it's someone not liking you with power. And then the last is the moral dilemma, because a lot of white people don't think of themselves as racist. And so when you present the idea that they may be holding racist ideas and concepts, that's like, oh, that doesn't fit with my moral worldview. And I've seen this in real life where I saw someone, I listened and watched a person, talked to them, and they were telling me how they would never be racist to a black person. And then with almost the same breath, discussing the fact that all Puerto Ricans carry knives. That cognitive dissonance was stunning. So what can white people do about this? They can build tolerance intentionally within themselves. They can resist the desire to be defensive and keep listening. And this is something I encounter all the time. Because when someone does something that pushes one of my buttons, my first reaction is to become defensive and to speak out and give them a counterexample or an argument. There are times when that isn't appropriate. There are times the most appropriate thing to do is to remain silent and listen. Not just to the words, but to everything. The context. Not trying to pick their words apart to find a hole in their argument, but to listen to what they are saying, how they are saying, and why they are saying it. Another thing we can do is become allies, and I make an effort to be an ally. And then we can work to transform the system, not to perpetuate it. Sorry, perpetuate is not the right word. Perpetuate is. And I'm going to link also to a Metafilter discussion on this topic, because one of the people makes a very interesting point. And if someone doesn't like you, you can live with that. We've all had people in our lives that don't like us. Okay? That's the way it is. But if someone doesn't like you and they have power over you, you may not be able to live with that. Because that person can affect your ability to get goods and services. That person can affect your ability to get housing, to get a job. That person can affect your ability to breathe. Because that person could very well get away with murder without consequence. And we see that in America, sadly, every day. Where white people murder black people and get away with it. A lot of the time they're cops. Doesn't matter. They're still white people murdering people of color. Now, if you are a person who has power and someone doesn't like you, what does it matter? You've got the power. There was a time in America where a white person could literally go all day long and not see a black person. Their lives were not touched by people of color unless they were in a servile position. A white person could only see people of color as servants, as laborers. There was never a time when they ever encountered a person of color as anything other than subservient. And there are white people who are alive today that would really like to return to that. They would really like to strip people of color of all the rights and civil liberties that they have acquired through blood, sweat, and tears, which is, of course, immoral. I've never had to deal with racial injustice, ever, in my life. I'm a white guy. I'm the whitest white guy that's ever lived. If I get any whiter, I'd be translucent. And I've never had to fear of being beaten by a cop because of my skin color. I'm sure I've gotten away with things in the past just because I'm a white guy. And the fact that I do not ever have to concern myself with that. The fact that I don't even know what I got away with because I'm a white guy. That's white privilege. I just never had to think about it. People of color have to think about it every second, every minute, every hour, every day of their lives. Because if they don't, they can end up dead.